the reading of this week from the book Rays of the One Light from Swami Kriyananda on the theme, the importance of soul receptivity. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John states, "But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name." This was a passage Paramahansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples. Be in tune, he would tell them. Delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said once, but it needn't be if you would stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said, she got there by attunement. To one who found meditation difficult, he said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune. Truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. It is in that consciousness above all that our lives are transformed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, to those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set a light in them, the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh, oh, oh. Wonderful Sunday to everyone again. I want to read from Yogananda's book, Whispers from Eternity. It's a short poem by our Master. And usually we listen to these whispers, but I want to ask you, especially in this very short whisper, to mentally repeat it as an affirmation within you, as if you were participating in this whisper. Try. O Divine Sculptor, chisel thou my life. Every sound that I make, let it have the vibration of thy voice. Every thought that I think, let it be saturated with the consciousness of thy presence. Let every feeling that I have glow with thy love. Let every act of my will be impregnated with thy divine vitality. Let every thought, every expression, every ambition be ornamented by thee, O Divine Sculptor. Chisel thou my life according to thy design. Some of you know that I'm just coming out this morning of a week of seclusion, so it's a bit difficult for me to talk. Until 1 hour ago, I haven't been talking for a week, but I'm very happy to be able to share with you and to say that this experience is always a very special moment in our lives as disciples of this path. And in fact, at Ananda, we create the space of 1 week a year in which we can have a spiritual holiday, recharging us spiritually, which is necessary, very necessary, especially in the times we're living in now. So no email, no work commitments, nothing. Also here we have a lot of service to do, but we try to keep everything apart. Also the chats, WhatsApp chats, for example. I had 500 messages on WhatsApp, but I didn't read them, I didn't see them. And what is important is that we do all we can to go inside, to meditate more, to read spiritual readings, practice yoga. If some of you do it, I like it, but not everyone practices yoga, but it's a beautiful moment to dedicate time to the care of the body on a more subtle level, and to just leave behind all the news, which is difficult today, where there's so much news about, for example, the virus and the situation we're living in. But once you can leave all that outside of your life, then it becomes a really beautiful experience. So this week was a preparation also for the theme of today, in which we talk of attunement with God, with the masters, with the Lord, with the saints. Every one of us, maybe we don't relate well, or we relate better to one guru or the other, and it's important to have this attunement because it's an attunement with a higher consciousness. Yogananda often said this saying of the Bible: as many as received him, to them he gave the power to become the sons of God. And to his disciples he gave this power. He said, get in tune with divine consciousness. And being a master, a divine incarnation, we can say, even if he didn't say it expressively, but he said, be in tune with my consciousness, with his consciousness, in order to be able to leave behind our human consciousness. And only this way he can really help us deep inside. He can inspire us to take the right decisions, to have the right understanding in every situation of our life. And in the reading of today it says, Master says, some may fall, but it's not necessary that they fall if they stay in tune. And this is something to think about, this phrase of Master, because it is easy to enter into an attitude of saying, I'm a disciple of this path, so of course I have an attunement with the Master. But it's not something automatic. It's not automatic to be in tune. And being in tune means to always be receptive to his inner guidance. It is not a presence that tells you what to do very clearly, not always, but you can feel it deep inside when you are in a moment of pause, of silence, there is guidance that we receive. And we need to be very subtle and still to receive these teachings on a soul level. Because if we don't have this relationship, we lose this. And then it's easy to take another path than Master would want us to take. And that would bring us to many experiences that can be difficult, very difficult for us. What can we do as disciples? First of all, we all have a karma, of course. We have our desires, attachments, all of this, our opinions. We have all of this, but we also have the possibility to be helped to overcome these difficulties in our lives. Because sometimes we realize that we made an error and we need to correct ourselves, but we can't do it alone. Alone, we can only do so much. Sometimes maybe, but not always. Even to the most advanced disciple that Yogananda had, Rajasi Janakananda, once he said to him, "Remember always where your power comes from." And Rajasi, like a child, answered, "I know, Master, it all comes from you." So this being conscious that the Master has the possibility to bring us, to guide us out of delusion, needs to always be present in us, in our relationship, in our discipleship. While I was in seclusion, I also read a book that inspired me a lot. A book of stories of a devotee of Master Devi Mukherjee. He wrote this small book. It's called Shaped by Saints. I don't think it's translated into Italian. And he tells his experiences when he was young. He went to see the saints, the yogis of the Himalayas, and searching for their guidance, to be helped and guided in his spiritual search. And Devi Mukherjee became Yogananda's disciple afterwards, and he was married and he came to Assisi, and we met him many times in India. He came to Assisi when we were celebrating the Yogananda's birthday, and he came with his wife Hashi. Hashi was the daughter of Tulsi Bose, who was Yogananda's boyhood friend and who offered Yogananda his house when, as a young boy or man, Yogananda didn't find peace to meditate at his home. So he went to meditate in Tulsi Bose's house. So that is the relationship with this man. And this house became the house where Hashi and Devi Mukherjee lived during their life. So I want to tell you a story. When Devi Mukherjee was going to visit a great yogi, Harigori was his name, and so he was told how to get there. He lived near the city of Nainital, in the hills, near the mountains where the Babaji cave is. when we do pilgrimages in India, and to Babaji's cave, we always stop in this little town. So he arrived there and asks the people of the town how to find the ashram of this yogi. So he's told, you follow this path and you come to a temple, and then you go on for some kilometers, and then you will see a great tree to your right, and from there do not go into the forest but turn on the path to the left, and then after a short while going up, you will come to the ashram of Harigor. So that were the indication that he received. So he starts walking. First he stops in the temple, and of course it's a temple to Divine Mother Kali, so he expresses his devotion to Divine Mother, and then he continues on his path, and he continues with the thought of Mother Kali in his mind, chanting to her, and he continues walking with her in in his thoughts, and he doesn't realize that chanting to Divine Mother, he passed already the high tree where he was supposed to turn left. So he goes into the forest, and at a certain point he realizes, oh my God, I'm lost. I went too far into the forest, and in that moment, when he realized that he's lost, a girl comes up to him, and she has some wood in her arms, carrying some wood, and she asks, where are you going? Are you lost? And without even asking anything, she says, I will take you where you need to go. And he's very surprised, because this young woman alone in the forest, and this woman says, don't go farther into the forest, there are tigers. You don't keep on going into the forest. So they go back, and he asks, why are you alone in the forest? Why do you go alone into the forest? And she smiles and says, follow me. And so they return to this high tree where he was supposed to take a turn. And then the young woman indicates him the right way. And for a moment he looks at her, and then he looks where he's supposed to go, and then he looks towards her and to greet her, but she's gone. She's vanished, and he's surprised, but she just disappeared. And so he continues his path to the ashram, and the yogi is waiting for him outside of the ashram and says, welcome. And he says, Divine Mother saved you, right? Next time, be more careful to follow the path. So this is an experience. Obviously, in India these things happen. Many things happen in India. And Divine Mother was in that girl. She was sent by some higher power, maybe by the saint who was waiting for him, the yogi. And that's the power of the masters, the power that can transform our lives, our consciousness. And we too can remain in contact with that power. How? First of all, through our devotion, and also including the Master, the Guru, into our life, into our thoughts, into our daily activities. A little personal experience that is very helpful to me. Sometimes in the morning after meditation, the thought comes to me. I start thinking of Master and I invite him into my activities during the day, maybe into a specific experience, for example, an important meeting or a delicate phone call, or maybe a visit to someone. If we invite Master to be present, then this thought helps us a lot to be in tune and create a relationship. And in the evening, maybe think about how your day was. Thank him for the help you received during a meeting, for example, during the phone call, during whatever you asked him to be with you, to guide you. So that's a very useful practice, to be conscious that he is there in our lives. He exists in our lives. Another way is to bring him into our meditations. In meditation, when it goes well, we try to detach from the exterior world and to be more aware of our inner world. And it's there where we find, when we are calm and interiorized, our relationship with the Masters. It's a moment of adoration that we live in that moment. We talk to him and he answers. He answers our prayers, our needs, but only when we are in deep silence, not when our mind wanders around. So that's why Yogananda says attunement is so important. He even says attunement is more important than meditation itself. To the person who had difficulties to meditate, the Master said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune, as long as you offer me your love, as long as you cling to my presence. And how many times we don't really succeed to meditate well. That often happens, that we can't keep our thoughts under control because we need to solve things, a specific thing, and until we haven't resolved it, we can't detach our mind from that thing. It happens, right? And in that moment, we are not lost. We are not completely lost. We always have the possibility to attune ourselves with him in another way. Attunement is a simple act that very often is just asking Master's presence in our mind. In the path of Kriyananda, we find several stories of disciples who received protection and guidance from the Master. And I want to tell you a few. Maybe all of you have read these stories, but there were several disciples of Master Norman, for example, the good giant. He was a friend of Swami Kriyananda, and they shared a room, I believe. And Norman, one day, he was driving a high vehicle, and he was going down the mountain of Mount Washington, the road of Mount Washington, and there was a very strict curve where you need to brake in order to turn the car. And at a certain point, when he was going down this hill, downhill, he tries to stop the car, but the brakes wouldn't work. He tries again, and the brakes still don't work. So he gets afraid, and he had already seen that this vehicle was going too fast, and so it was going too fast to take the curve. And in that moment, he directs his thought to Master and says, Master, is this what you want? And only that thought put him in condition to receive an answer. And the answer was what saved his life in that situation. That this vehicle, in the help of some mystical force, strength, somehow stayed on the road in that curve. And he never understood how that could have happened. But Master, without demonstrating his strength, had made this miracle. In another story, another disciple, Mr. Quaron, who lived in Mexico City, he was the leader of self-realization in Mexico City. He was looking for a job for a long time and didn't find work, and he had to work, and Master knew that. So one day he receives a job offer from a society which was not from Mexico City, but somewhere else in Mexico. So he wrote to Master and says, Master, I found a job, but I would need to move to another city. So can you find someone else to guide the center while I'm out of town? And he was expecting the Master to answer, yes, of course, I'm happy to find someone else. But almost immediately after he sent this request, the Master answers with a very urgent telegram saying, no, absolutely don't take that job. And he was completely surprised. Why does the Master answer like this? But he listens to Master, so he does not accept the job. And a few weeks later on the news, he sees that this company, the society where he was supposed to go working for, was accused for fraud, maybe, and were arrested and put into prison. Even the person who took the job offer that he was about to take. So this was another blessing miracle that the Master granted his disciple. So this is the relationship that we all want to have with Master. Of course, we want to have his protection, we want to feel this care. And the only way to have it also without these big facts, miracles, is to keep our attunement with Him. With Him, we know that we have found a treasure, a guide who illuminates our way, our lives. And that is enough. We don't need to wait for miracles, because the essence of the spiritual path is to be able to live evermore in the consciousness of the presence of God within us. And this presence is the Guru, is the Master, who accompanies us always, who lives with us, and who takes care of us in every moment of our lives. To end, I want to reread the lecture of today, because what the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter is very deep. And I want to reread to really keep the depth, to understand the depth of this. To those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment, by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set a light in them, the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. And in this spirit, when Divine Spirit acts within us, our lives cannot but shine. And this is my wish for all of you.